Ready to roll here. Welcome to the Pursuing Polaris podcast. I'm your host, Tom Ramshaw, grinder, podcast host. This is Canada's Team Canada NorthStar SailGP's podcast, and we have a very special guest today. Been long wanting to get him on. We got our coach, Joe Glanfield. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tom.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. Good. Get here in Saint-Tropez. Beautiful weather.
Enjoying the French Riviera?
Ah, yeah, I like it. Yeah, trying to remember some French to go with it.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. I've learned French through high school, and it's amazing how quickly you can forget a language you don't practice.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't excel at French at school.
Yeah, me neither.
I always imagine every Canadian speaks French as well as English.
Yeah, it's not really the case, unfortunately. It's like the French area, Quebec, and then the rest of Canada doesn't. Well, there's lots of French speakers, but they don't do quite as well to learn the language as in these like European countries learning English, for instance.
Yeah.
Nice. So welcome to the podcast. So here, I don't know if you've heard many of our other podcasts. But
I have. I've listened to them all. I've been.
Really?
Yeah. Trying to get to know.
Are you a regular podcast listener?
I do. Yeah, just to hear it straight from the sailor's mouth and get to know them a bit better.
Nice. So we're just trying to get to know everyone involved with the team, and I think when I joined the team and I find out you were our coach, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know your background very well. I don't think it was you were not your fame didn't spread to Canada at that time, and now it is. So I think a lot of people would like to get to know your story and how you began, and you're like myself, mostly in the Olympic scene.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, was in the Olympic world for a very long time, both as a sailor and a coach. So it's been a big part of my life for sure.
Yeah, so I guess we could just start from the beginning. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into sailing? And then how'd you make it full time and get into the Olympic stuff?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a town called Exmouth, which is down in the southwest of England. It's actually the places you would know from combining Olympic and SailGP is Weymouth and Plymouth. And Exmouth is kind of sat in between those two. And I was really lucky in that I learned it's by the sea, and I learned to sail down there, and everyone sailed these small two-man boats two-child boats called a cadet. And I was just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, really, in the sense we had a group of kids that lived in that town that all raced hard and learned to sail hard and pushed each other. So it's really sort of, it was a time where from about the age of 12 onwards, my life became pretty revolved around sailing, as did those other kids. And I mean, of that group of kids, almost all of us ended up going into sailing careers. And at some point from that small town, 5 of us ended up going to the Olympics. And you'd know some of them, like Stevie Morrison, the commentator, he was there. Ian Williams, one of the other coaches in SailGP, he was there as well. There were a lot of people that were sailing together and youth sailing in that small town that went on to have careers in the sport.
It's amazing how that can happen with like a whole generation of one tiny club. A similar kind of thing happened to me, actually. I'm from this really tiny yacht club called Stony Lake Yacht Club, and most people don't become full-time sailors after that, and a few of us did from the exact same team. And
it's not surprising, is it, when you think about it? Like, you end up in this sort of like micro culture where you push each other on, and you hear it happening in other sports as well, and then you go outside of that and compete against people away from it, and you realize actually you're pretty good, and I think that was the case for all of us.
So the cadets, I remember being in Weymouth probably more than 10 years. Well, it would have been before the London Olympics, so it would have been probably 2012, and seeing these kids in, like, for me it was I hadn't done a lot of sailing outside of the summer months in Canada, so I hadn't done a lot of cold weather stuff. So seeing these kids in little rain jackets going out on the water in like 12 degrees, I was like, wow, no wonder England's got so many good sailors. There's like these kids are going out, they're so tough.
Yeah.
Even you.
Well, it would have, but I mean, age has definitely made me soft, because I now look back and I just cannot believe I wanted to go sailing in the middle of the winter in the UK. You know, like now I look at it and just think, oh, why would I want to do that? It's freezing and it's miserable. And but at that age, I was fine. I was fine doing it and happy to do it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I remember thinking how tough those kids are, because I was very much, as a young kid, not enjoying the cold. I never had the right gear, and but yeah, that's cool. So then a group of you ended up sailing full time, and you got into the Olympic stuff. You were a 470 sailor.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I had a slightly unusual story in the sense. I was always a helming cadet, but you know, traditionally, I guess in the UK anyway, the helm tends to be the one that buys the boat and owns the equipment, and I got to an age where I wasn't sure, more to the point, my parents weren't sure if they could afford a boat and afford it to carry on. I'd done well in a cadet, and Stevie Morrison was looking for a crew in the 420, so at that point I switched to crewing, and you know, Ian Walker was quite a role model of mine, and he was someone that had gone from helming to crewing and sort of led the way in terms of a crew that can offer something strategically and tactically. Yeah. And that's what I envisaged myself doing, and it actually turned out to be a really good move, because I was quite sought after a crew as someone that could also helm and understood tactics, and ended up taking that path. But I guess the thing that was, I mean, it was, when I look back, it was luck, but is my timing of coming out of youth sailing and education exactly tied in with the introduction of lottery funding in the UK.
Okay.
And I always remember going to the Youth Worlds and this coach telling me, do you realise if you get to a certain standard, you can now go sailing full time towards the Olympics and get paid to do it? And I remember that possibility just blowing my mind, like, oh wow, I could go and sail full time. It had never occurred to me that was something that I could do, and so that was the path that I pursued.
So then you managed to qualify for that funding, and the rest is history. You were a full-time sailor.
Yeah.
Till this day. So you would have done your first Olympics. Which were those? That was
my first Olympics was the year 2000, so 25 years ago, and I'd only just turned 21 at the time, so I was really young, and a bit wide-eyed to the whole thing. But we went to that Olympic. It was an incredible Olympics. I mean, you know, they did a brilliant job of hosting it, but also I think that first Olympics, regardless of the result, is always the most special, you know, yeah. A special experience. Do you think that as well?
Well, I only had 2 experiences, and the second one had the COVID situation. Yeah. So it was, for me, the first one was the most special for sure. I did a lot better at the second one, but yeah, that was my experience.
I mean, that would be the same for me, is that I came fourth at that Olympics. I missed a medal by 1 point. So on paper, it was terrible in the sense of how close we came to winning a medal, and then didn't. And I was gutted at the time. But equally, it was just with more distance, I look back on it and think it was the best Olympics by far. It was the most amazing experience.
It's funny how that perspective changes over time and maturing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in your next 2 Olympics you did as a sailor, you had a little, well, results-wise, a little more success, but
yeah,
tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so the next 2 Olympics, I got a silver medal at both of them, and I mean, you know, one of them particularly, I felt a little bit disappointed that we didn't come away with the gold. But I also, again, I sort of look back and think, that's the problem with sports people, isn't it? Is whatever you want more, and you see the things that you could have done and could have done better. But we're a bit of a distance. I can see that we did a pretty decent job of both of those Olympics. But yeah, the Athens one we were close to winning, and the the Beijing one, to be honest, we weren't. There was an outstanding Australian team, Nathan Wilmot and Malcolm Page, and they won by a long way. And actually, we just got a silver medal. So we were pretty happy.
So you were more happy with the second silver than the first?
In some respects, yeah. In some respects, I mean, the problem is I'm abbreviating these stories because I realised I could talk for hours about the ins and outs.
That's okay. That's why we're here.
But I'm not sure it's that interesting to anyone other than myself and the people that I was competing against.
Well, it's certainly a pretty impressive result to do 3 Olympics alone, and then to get obviously 4 is that's everyone's worst nightmare when it comes to just missing out on the medals, because the medals becomes a big goal for everyone. But 4, 2, 2 is a pretty unbelievable string of results over the
and to be honest, the 4th, we as I say, I was 21 and we had never got a medal at any international event. So we went there with very little expectation of getting a medal. And I always remember our coach at the time, Hamish, saying, this is a venue where you could do it. You know, it's the wind's all over the place. You know, if you get it right tactically, if you're in the right place of mind, it could happen. And we went there with that belief that we could do a sort of personal best and make it happen.
Yeah.
But we had never actually won a medal at any other event.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, it's a good way to jumping off point for getting into the next quad after that. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's move on to well, I guess after 2008 in Beijing, did you just immediately go into coaching, or how'd you get into coaching?
Yeah.
What's the process there?
Yeah, so I guess the backstory to all of this, or it's certainly not the backstory for me, it's the front story, but the backstory to my sailing is I had a family early, had kids really early, and by the point that I was at Beijing, I was when I finished at Olympics, I was 29 years old, and I also had 3 children and a wife. So I felt as though one of the reasons we didn't push on and win a gold in Beijing was just the sheer amount of time away and commitment that it needed. And I felt as though if I carried on to London sailing, there were too many compromises, and I felt just a little bit burnt out with it all, to be honest. So I wanted to go into different directions, and I guess part and parcel of having children young had also meant that I had quite often coached to supplement my income. And
you'd already done a lot of coaching.
I'd already done loads of coaching. Like really, I almost filled gaps in my sailing with coaching, and so I'd done a lot of coaching. I was really interested in just human performance, and just I've always found people interesting, and people under pressure interesting, and people trying to get to a higher level. So for me, coaching in some sort of context was always a reasonably likely path for me to go down.
Okay. Do you think that coaching to supplement your sailing actually helped with your sailing in those early days of juggling both?
I think it did. I think it helped. You know, you always, I think when particularly Olympic sailing, quite often you're fighting to get a bigger perspective on what you're doing and where you're at in the quad and what you need to do. And I think sometimes just moving myself away from my own sailing and having to look at someone else and look at the mistakes they're making and look at how to improve them quickly gave me things to relate to my own sailing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I can imagine it being, I didn't do much of that, but I can imagine it being good for changing perspective a bit on how you're doing things within your own campaign. Yeah,
definitely. And likewise, I actually think having children young, essentially it made me more professional at a younger age, really.
Well, I was going to get more into that later, but we can go off on a tangent. That was one of the first things I found out about you is you now have 5 kids.
Yep.
It's pretty rare in our kind of I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but in our kind of generation of people having even more than 2 sometimes.
Yeah.
And you juggling the sailing lifestyle and being a dad of 5, that's got to be pretty challenging and pretty fun at the same time, I imagine.
No, I mean, it's both of those things. It's fantastic, and you know, we have a brilliant family life, but it can be challenging as well, for sure. And you know, I get that's my time gets taken in a lot of different directions. I mean, one thing I can say is I don't feel like I've got done an awful lot outside of family time and sailing time. You know,
those are your two lives. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's not many extra hobbies put in there, but
you go with the lads to watch some football games, no?
I sometimes go with my kids to watch some football games,
okay.
but yes, and I sometimes play football, but yeah, that's about it. But yeah, it's you know, and my eldest is 27 years old now, so she's left the house and you know and long gone, but yeah, it's interesting, and I guess what it has done to my career and my sailing life is it's really made me. I guess you get some sailors and you look at them and you think, how well are you using your training time? How clearly do you know why you're going to this competition? And for me, that's all I've always needed to be able to answer that. You know, what's the purpose of this training camp and what's the purpose of this competition? And I think
so. Having kids and a family, it gives you that motivation to push. Is that?
I think so. Yeah. I think you know it's you know because I went into it straight from school. It is essentially I'm quite reliant on it, and so it gave, as I said before, it gave me a sort of professionalism from reasonably young. I think there is also the argument, which I completely can see, that actually there's some people that are dedicating. I mean, I look at some of the Olympic sailors and they are putting in 300 days a year.
Yeah.
And I never did that. Never got, you know, and I never did that, and I never could do that. So that was a, you could say, as a potential weakness, is that actually that just repeating and repeating and repeating to gain skills, I never did, and I never had.
Yeah, as a new parent, I find it's a challenge because every sailing day is being away from family.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of, you know, you have these two lives, so it's tough to separate the two and make one complement the other, but
yeah,
something I got to learn to do.
And I think it's I guess SailGP as well is different to Olympic sailing, is that the program's set for you.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you've got to, every individual that's doing it, they have to decide whether they're prepared to make that commitment to it. The Olympic sailing is always open-ended. You know, you can put in as much as you decide, but that's not always positive. You know, like I would definitely coach people or race against people that I could see put in an unbelievable amount of time, but it wasn't terribly structured or productive. Yeah.
You got to have those days be as efficient as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, to the start of your coaching career, you went from sailing 470 at 3 Olympics.
Yeah.
And then you did coaching 470 at 3 Olympics, and then you even became the head of the high performance director. What's the title?
No, I wasn't the high performance director.
You were the head coach?
I was the head coach, yeah. So slightly different within the British sailing team, as there's another performance director.
Okay.
But yeah, when I stopped sailing, initially I went completely away from sailing, just for like a year or two. I did some professional sailing, but I didn't go straight into sailing coaching.
Okay.
And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to try and gain coaching skills outside of my like area of knowledge.
Yeah.
So because there's a difference, you know, and I think what a lot of sailors who go straight into coaching do is they think, okay, well, what do I know and what do I need to tell these sailors? And actually I think there's a whole nother side of coaching, which is how do you understand people, a target, and how to help those people develop towards it. And I worked actually within schools a little bit with what we call gifted and talented students that are gifted and talented in sport.
Okay.
And I helped basically set up a mentoring program for them. And I also did a course in executive and business coaching, which essentially helped me learn some sort of tools and skills that were completely away from the sailing world, and with different people from all sorts of different backgrounds.
So you did some work within that sector, or?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Which was, it was kind of interesting. But then I got pulled back into the sailing coaching. I think, that cycle was the London Olympics, so it was the home Olympics as well.
It would be hard to miss that one, I suppose.
It would be hard to miss. And I coached a few different people, but then in the end, a year before the Olympics, Hannah Mills and Saskia Clark, they had qualified, and they asked if I'd come back and coach them for that Olympics, for that year leading into that Olympics. And funnily enough, when I said I coached when I was still Olympic sailing, one of the events I did, which I can't remember which year, I think it was like 2005 or something, was the Youth Worlds. And I coached Hannah Mills at the Youth Worlds, and actually Giles was there as well in the laser.
Oh, wow.
So I remember Giles when he was 18 from that. And so I knew Hannah, and I'd kind of mentored Hannah a little bit in the background between that. So yeah, then she asked if I'd come back and coach her at that Olympics. And I ended up then coaching her with Saskia and then with Ailey at 3 Olympics.
Okay. So then that was 3 medals again.
Yeah, 3 medals again. So 5 from 6, which was
that's a pretty good record.
It's a good record. I again, maybe more luck than judgment, but it's a good record.
Yeah. I think there's. I mean, I'm sure there's many coaches in all of Olympic sailing that have had similar records, but it's got to be among one of the better ones.
Yeah, no, I think there was. I remember when Hannah and Saskia came second in London, I was like, oh my God, I've got a real recipe here for how to come second.
Yeah, this is the 3rd in a row.
And so I think whilst Hannah and Saskia felt a huge pressure to win a gold in Rio, I also felt like this has to be gold. Yeah. I have to be involved in a gold medal winning team, not a silver medal winning team.
Yeah. Yeah, I could imagine that pressure of 3 silvers in a row. Nice. So Olympic sailing, heavy in it, 6 Olympics, and then you started. You'd done some other pro sailing, but how did you've been in SailGP since the inception of SailGP?
Yeah.
How did you find your way into that? And then what important learnings from Olympic sailing? What new things did you have to adopt? I imagine a lot of the tech and stuff.
You
or
so I guess so it was quite funny because so for a while I did both, SailGP, and while SailGP was getting off the ground, I did that and the Olympic coaching, and I just dived out of some of the Olympic coaching that clashed. But I guess what led me to SailGP was a combination of the people that I knew from Olympic sailing. So I knew Dylan Fletcher and Stu Bithell well from their campaign because I'd been a mentor within their campaign. To be honest, I've been a mentor for Stu since he left youth sailing almost.
He was sailing the 470 first.
Younger. Yeah, exactly. So whilst I coached Hannah, I also did these sort of strategy meetings with Luke and Stu in that London cycle.
Okay.
And then I also knew Chris Draper, who was the CEO of the team and the wing trimmer, and I used to compete against him. And so I think I don't know exactly how it happened, but between those 3, they approached me to see if I'd be interested in coaching that team. And I always remember when it got landed on my table, thinking, it seemed like such a interesting opportunity. Conceptually, is it to take these unbelievable boats and create this worldwide circuit, open data. I just thought it's hard to say no.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
But I guess in those early days, you're not sure if this league's going to be a one-off thing or it's going to be sustainable. And here we are in our 5th season. Or
unbelievable and amazing to see it grow from every aspect. From the way it's produced, to what goes alongside it, to the teams and how much better they've got, and how the standard has just gone up and up. And as you said before, I mean, I guess it in some respects the challenges SailGP has, they're completely different to the challenges of trying to do well at the Olympics.
Yeah.
The Olympics, you've got unlimited amounts of time, culminating in this one important event.
Yeah.
SailGP, you've got this really fixed structure, but it's a league over the course of a season. So,
Yeah.
and yes, it leads to one big race in the end if you make the final, but actually there's a league that you need to do well in over the whole season.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Olympic sailing, it's once every 4 years, or, you know, you have your one peak event, might be the World Championship, and you put so much energy into that one thing, whereas here it's just everyone's weighted the same besides the one grand final. So it's like you might have a bad one, and it's much easier to move forward and just work forward towards the next one. Whereas Olympic sailing, it's like, I don't know, it feels like more invested into the peak events, whereas here it's you're just slogging along doing event after event, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is nice. I mean, and you know, you go to some brilliant venues, don't you? And I guess that bit that you were talking about family life is, you know, they're not long trips, you know, so it sort of can fit from that point of view. But there's a lot of things you can look into when you get back home, because you've got all the data, you've got all of the comms, all of the video from all the boats. There's so much that you can go.
Wow, you can go down a big rabbit hole on any question you have.
I have spent some days at home of watching video again and again, and watching video alongside the data all day. You know, and it's amazing, really.
So you did the British team season 1, then the Japanese team season 2, or
I mean, I feel like I've actually been involved in some way or another with quite a lot of different teams, because, you know, it felt for a long time SailGP felt like the opposite to what my Olympic life had felt, because Olympic wise I sailed with the same helm, a guy called Nick Rogers, for 3 Olympics, with the same coach for 3 Olympics, and I then went into coaching Hannah for 3 Olympics with only one change in crew, so from Saskia to Ailey. So I had this, you know,
a lot of the same for a lot of years.
Yeah, and I could say a lot of my success within it had been to do with long, stable relationships where we'd learned to get the best out of each other and grow and things. And then suddenly in SailGP, everything kept changing, you know, and you'd only get started with one team, and then something would change and that would break down, and I'll be going off to a new team. So I started with the British. And then after one season, the British got bought by Ben Ainsley and his group, essentially, and so they brought in their America's Cup team. So I then got asked by the American team if I wanted to coach them. I did one event with them, and then COVID hit. And the season got cancelled.
I didn't realize you'd done it with them.
Yeah, and that was before Jimmy's time. So then when after COVID, when the league started again, Jimmy took over that team and brought in his own coach, Philippe, and his own sailors, and so then Nathan asked me to coach the Japanese. So I did the next season with the Japanese. Which was great. You know, really interesting project, because it was quite a new team. You had Nathan, Bruni, Chris, you know, Leo and Tim. So it was a really interesting mix of people that hadn't sailed together before with limited time. But then at the end of that season, they were struggling. It wasn't looking like they were going to carry on. And I had an offer from Phil to come and join the Canadians.
Yeah.
So at that point, I then switched to the Canadians, and so it's gone. I've coached a lot of different people. I actually got this horrible feeling there's nearly someone in every team now in SailGP that I've coached at some point.
It's been around a while.
I know. It's a sign of age, I think.
In the middle of season 4, you did a brief time with the German team, no?
Yeah, so you know, when the Canadian team went through that tough patch, you know, where the ownership was unclear, and I think Phil, Chris, and myself all kind of got to a similar point at a similar time where we felt like the energy was a bit low amongst us, and we ended up all going our separate ways.
Yeah.
There wasn't any hard feelings about that. It did feel like the right thing to do. But then I went as an extra coach with the German team for a few events last season.
So now you're back with the Canadian team, and I guess in all those 4 seasons prior, you were still doing Olympics coaching.
Yes.
And this is now the first season where you're full SailGP.
Yeah, and it's really good. And absolutely. No, and it's really what I craved, because you look at SailGP and there's so much you can do to be ready, to get ready for an event, to review an event, to work through challenges that the team's got, either with the sailing team or in some cases like operationally with the management. Sometimes they'll coach you a bit of a go-between between all of that side that connects performance and the whole structure of the team. So this is the first season that I feel like I can dedicate much more to that, and that was what really excited me when Phil and Giles approached me about coming back to the Canadian team. What excites me about it is being able to do that, and it feeling like a really, I guess what I love about sport is when you're trying to make progress. I don't really care I wouldn't care if we were last, if I could see the opportunity to try and progress and get better. That's why you coach, is to try and find improvements and to make it better, and this team feels like it's got a structure where we can do that.
Yeah, for sure. It's like amazing the amount you can do off the water, and I see all the work you're putting in and time. It's pretty impressive. How much of your job is just balancing the different personalities, everyone's different needs as individual athletes versus doing the technical stuff on the computer? And
I think a lot of my time is to do with that. And as I say, and you can probably tell from me as a coach, I'm very comfortable with the sort of human performance side of things, and I think the fact that I work with Bleds as well, Bledden, he helps me a lot by he's so good at all the technical side of things, and so I think we're a good combination in that sense. But what I have coached a lot of good sailors over a number of years now, and what you realise is invariably they know more than you, and so invariably your job as a coach is understanding them and listening to them and understanding how to get the best from them, and also facilitating those conversations, to help draw out that knowledge and those ideas into a wider team.
Yeah, I think of that as well, even in my position as being a role, like having just a smaller role, not being the center of the team as a driver or something, is what can you do to get the best out of your teammates and stuff. So I'm sure that's a big part of your coaching role, is what can I say and how can I facilitate getting the best out of each athlete.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when I came back to the Canadian team, I'd actually coached, even though I'd known Giles and CJ since they were kids, I hadn't really coached either of them.
Yeah.
Whilst I coached you guys the season before. So in that, from a coaching perspective, I had more experience coaching you and Billy and Jerice and Tim and Annie than I did CJ.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't realized that you hadn't worked directly with them.
No, so Giles was someone that I did. There was a time that within the British sailing team I did a role that was basically strategic planning.
Yeah.
Like planning people's programs. So I would meet with Giles and his coach at times to do that. Okay. But in terms of actual on the water coaching or watching his racing, I'd never done it.
So you would have known his personality and stuff a lot from all the years being on the British squad.
Yeah, so I had an outside view of his personality, but one way to truly get to know someone is to watch them in competition and under pressure, and so that's been really interesting.
Yeah, it is so funny to work with so many different personalities and see how they mesh together. Yeah. And it's pretty fun. I mean, I sailed against Giles. I didn't know him very well as a competitor against him, but like getting to know people on the team and seeing how it all works is super interesting. Being the coach would be fun to help facilitate getting that all to work as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, and it's complicated in SailGP because there's always something changing, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, you think of all the changes that have happened, even in the time that you've been involved, and you know, there's been equipment changes, there's been rule changes, there's been suddenly the booth can coach during the race. You know, like there's just constant changes to keep up with.
I was just thinking to ask you that. So when we started, it was you and the rib, maybe a little iPad, taking videos from an iPhone. It's just, it was like Olympic coaching but on these boats where it didn't maybe need that. And now you're in a booth like Formula One style, looking out over the course, bunch of screens. Headphones, talking to us. How do you like all that and how that's changed?
Well, funnily enough, I do quite like it, and I think I'm naturally a bit of a Luddite in the sense that I was kind of like, oh, this is a silly change. You know, I want to be on the water with the sailors. You know, and I can't get on the boat and look at them in the face and have a conversation with them. But the reality is, you got more information being sat in the booth, and then you've got clearer comms as well. To the boat, ironically, than when you're on the water. So you can offer more.
You're essentially like a seventh sailor.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always hard to know what to say and when, you know, and as you know, we've been playing around with that a bit and trying different amounts of input. But it's very unique. It's a big change from Olympic sailing where you say goodbye to your sailors with 5 minutes to go before the race and you can't talk to them until afterwards. And now you're not only are you listening the whole way through, you're also
you can tell them what you want them to do if you want to get really direct.
I don't feel I got a great hit rate though. Every time I do tell them what to do, I feel like there's a high percentage where it's the wrong thing. But
it's funny when you're not in the boat. It feels like you can make 100% calls sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's so obvious to do that, and then when they don't do that, you're in retrospect. You can point to it, but I guess it's only because once you can actually tell them, then it becomes a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, and what I don't know, what is unbelievable, isn't it, in SailGP is how quick the races are and how short if you actually look at time between each maneuver. And it is unbelievable. I mean, you're talking about a minute, aren't you, between each
it's pretty rare to sail over a minute in a straight line without a tack or a jibe or a rounding. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So it's safe to say you'll be back again and continuing on with SailGP with our team for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I really, it's been an interesting season, hasn't it? Because we've experienced a lot of highs and lows, and sometimes it's what you realize is it's tiny margins between those highs and lows. It's not big obvious things, and finding consistency in such a good fleet is really difficult. But that does it appeals to me, and wanting to find those gains and wanting to see if we can progress as a team. And I think it's a great team to be part of, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. It's exciting times. It does feel like we're on the up, and we're working through a lot of things and figuring it out and how to get better. And it's a fun puzzle to do. It wouldn't be fun if you were just winning. Well, could be fun if you were winning every time, but you got to have the challenge of it not being easy that makes it the best and most satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say? What do you think would make, as a sailor, SailGP better?
I mean, as a sailor, these are the most fun boats to sail, and so I'd want to sail them more.
Yeah.
Whether that's more racing
races, or more training.
Could be more training. Could be longer regattas. Just more days, more hours on the water.
Yeah.
And as you said, in the first few seasons, the level wasn't very high.
Yeah.
If we can sail these boats more time, I think the level will go up, and it'll just be better racing, better product for viewership, and more fun for the sailors, safer, all these positives, I would say.
Yeah. And I think the low amount of training time it makes it very hard to introduce new techniques, because often, certainly thinking of it from a coach's perspective, you have to take a dip to change something fundamental, and that's hard to do if you're straight into a race each time.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I can't imagine the people who are in charge of logistics of this league, what the puzzle is to get these boats everywhere in time, get them all together, and so it's hard to add more days, but
yeah,
that's what I would like to see.
Yeah.
But what about you? You have any improvements you think would improve SailGP if you were the big boss?
Yeah, actually I got loads.
Yeah, you got loads. Let's hear it.
No, I think it's good, but I definitely I think it's an amazing circuit. I just think with time there's some things that would make it even more amazing, in the sense that firstly I think once they can get to a point of having a consistent season, you know, like where, as you know, I'm a big football fan.
Yeah.
And you know when the season's going to start and you know when it's going to end. And I think SailGP would benefit from
a little bit of continuity.
A little bit of continuity and continuity of venues, and, you know, knowing, okay, February is Sydney, you know, May is San Francisco. And so people that follow it can look forward to that, knowing grand final will always be at this time of year.
I think this season and beyond, they're there.
Yeah.
For answering that. I would assume it's going to be, rather than calling it season 5, season 6, it'll just be 2026, 2027.
Yeah. And
just go with the calendar year. That would make sense to me. And people would, my friends who follow it but aren't, you know, they're not watching every single race and watching every single bit of media about it. They're like, oh, when's the season start? And he's like, oh, we're in the middle of it. Or he's like, oh, so you've got a break now that you're done the season? It's like, no, next season starts next month.
Yeah,
like,
I think it would be good. I know they are working towards it. I do think the training time would be good. Yeah. You know, like just being able to get new people into it and bridge the gap between the more experienced teams. I'm also not convinced about the last race, the one race to win the championship. You know?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like actually there should be some sort of advantage from winning the whole season.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I think the final for each weekend, it works, you know?
Yeah.
If you got unlucky, the best series and you came third in the final, you know, that does happen. But doing that for the entire season seems like a bit strong.
Yeah, and there being no reward, you know, essentially once you know, for a team that once they know they're in the final, then actually there's no reward. It really, they might just come in the top 3 for the season and try some things out.
That's true. But I got another one. Raise the prize money. Let's go.
Yeah, well, there's always that.
There's always that, though. Well, thanks for joining the podcast. You can see it's a nice day in Saint-Tropez. We'll get out there and hopefully have a good weekend. I guess people will be listening to this after. But yeah, Joe, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Been good, yeah. Mistrials in. Looks good for the weekend.
It's going to be fun.